back working on the Porsche. We're just getting it ready for its first track day. I'm not sure if I'm going to go with them for it, but I am going to make sure the car is good before they take it to the track day. Tony's helping me on it, that way we can get everything taken care of and so on and so forth. But we have to finish putting the brakes together. The suspension is going in. There's little bits here and there for the bushings that we're doing in the back, the rear tie rods, exhaust, spark plugs. At the end of this video, you should have, or you should be able to see a running Porsche. But as if you saw the other one, you know, we did quite a lot already. So now we're just hopefully wrapping it up, but it's not a small task right now. All right, so we're putting the front calipers on. I did the passenger side, so we're gonna do the driver's side right now. These are vibration dampers. So essentially they stick to the back of the pad, because of course our pads don't have anything on the back of them. And these will slide into the one that matches its size, because we have 3 and they're all slightly different sizes. So this one just clicks into the biggest one. And then we take off the adhesive backing so it's sticky.
You were close, you sounded reversed.
Come on. Yeah. And so the pad just kind of tilted in, rested on the little metal pieces that the bottom of the pad will touch, and then pushed it against it. That way it holds it where it should be. Same thing with the other side. And then this is the hardware kit that holds in the pads. These are for the rear. I'll show you those when we get to the rear. But this is the spring that keeps the pads down. And then the rod that essentially holds the pads where they should be, and a bolt to finish it off. A lot of other ones, even the ones on my car, they have like a, what's it called, a cotter pin in it, or pin. Like this one has a pin that holds it. But because these are more for racing or the GT cars, they wanted to do a Loctited bolt on it. And I definitely see why. So now we just gotta shove this spring down, force that through, and then it has notches so that it slides into the caliper in the position that will There we go. So I'm going to tighten this on the car, but we just want to make sure everything stays where it should be. And essentially right now, the rotor is prepped, or the caliper is prepped to go on. So now we're going to throw on the stainless steel brake lines. And then you do have to, with the kit going from here to here, the metal line that goes into the back of the caliper, you actually have to like tweak to get it to line up properly. And I found it's better to tweak the one that goes back into the caliper just for being able to get your hands back there. So this is what they call a 2-piece rotor, obviously, because the center is different than the exterior. And the reason why they're 2-piece is because the center can be made of a much lighter metal and requires less material. And they do that for racing because rotational mass and so on and so forth. I don't know the actual weight savings on it, but we do have a set of almost identical rotors for another Porsche here. And I picked up the 2 boxes and I couldn't pick up the 2 boxes of all 4 rotors. I had to do them in between, where these ones I could carry all 4 rotors. So it's a substantial difference in weight. If you're going for any kind of serious driving or anything like that, these are the way to go. Now, granted, these ones do say made in America on them, so you can only assume how much they cost, but they're at least quality. So what I'm doing here with this is called an impact screwdriver. if you ever have trouble with these or if you have to deal with these, this is like $15 from O'Reilly's. This is always fun, lining up caliper bolts. But at least everything is new. And this car has very low miles, so hopefully. Oh yeah. Okay, I wanted to show you guys how far off the brake line is. So it just takes a little, you know, gingerly touch on bending this line back to actually screw into its proper home now. But we'll get there. I'll show you the other side that I already did. It's not bad, and you don't really do anything crazy with the line. It just bends here and there, make sure it works. We're gonna move on to the rear stuff. So we're gonna do the suspension, the Olin struts. We're gonna do the brake kit, which is a 997 cup car brake kit. We're gonna do the extended studs. We're gonna clean everything. And then after we clean everything, we're actually going to be doing metal bushings. So they're for the knuckle or the whole subframe kind of thing that goes into the back of that. And you have to, well, we burn them out, get everything put in there, and then they kind of press in there. And it raises the suspension roughly 12 millimeters, which actually lowers the car because now the suspension's higher up. And it makes it so that the control arm of the subframe and all that stuff has even less movement than it did before. This strut's going to be replaced with the Olins. These are the bushings, top and bottom, which it's actually a giant thing you'll see when we take it out, but that is getting replaced with the metal ones. Brake calipers getting replaced, bigger, and it's actually going to be a two-piece rotor just like the fronts. And then we're going to do the studs. So the other thing that we're going to do is clean as much as we can all of this. Essentially, it will end up looking like this side. So everything is clean. Here are the metal bushings, and you can see it's a lot closer to the chassis than before. And then, you know, of course, nice big brake caliper, two-piece rotor, our studs, everything else up in there. Don't worry, I just gotta bolt that up when the car comes back down. So the first thing that I like to take care of, or at least try to get done, is the brake line, because we're replacing it. So breaking these bolts loose for the brake line, the hard lines off of the soft line, can be trying. The other side fought me and I ended up having to make a new brake line. So this side hopefully will go quickly, or decently, and we will just cross our fingers. All right, I got both of them off, which I'm happy with. The one on the back of the brake caliper is a 10, and the one on the chassis side of the soft line is an 11. Don't ask me why. That's what it is. So we got the line out. They broke free. That's perfect. The only thing on this side that's different than the other side is this sensor, which is like a level sensor. It has something to do with like the headlights or other things like that. So there's a little thing down here that attaches to the lower control arm, and I'm going to pop the plastic off, and that will come up, and then we can take off the 10 that holds this bracket on, and that whole thing will be free from the knuckle. This plastic piece was a lot scarier to try to take off, so I'm just disconnecting the end link from it, and then we'll be able to yank this out and put it back together without breaking anything. So I unbolted the bracket from down there, unplugging the sensor so that it's just out of the way. Next is going to be unplugging the ABS and the brake pad sensor. Where did I put that? There it is. So these are actually really nice connectors because it just pops up and then they disconnect. And so you actually do have to take off the 10 that holds on that connector that I just unplugged, because the connector that the 10 holds on goes to the chassis, and we need that separate from the knuckle. So I will say too, if you're ever going to do this on a car, you don't need to have the engine out. The only difference is there's, I believe, 2 brackets that bolt to the bottom of this. There's a center bracket that goes from one side to the other side, and then there's the axles. Other than that, the engine can be in this car while we're doing all of this. We're just going to take off the caliper. It's 2 10 mil Allens, and we're not going to be putting this caliper back on because we have bigger ones. And we actually have bigger rotors and everything too. And since the lines and the sensor is disconnected, the whole thing comes off. So when I said I had to make a new line, I had to make a new one of these, because that one somehow got stripped into the soft line and it wouldn't break loose. This side, much better. Rotor off. So now I do have the strut unbolted from the inside. We do on our coilover video of one of these, you'll see how to take the Bose speaker out to get to the bolts above this, because it took me a little bit to figure out, but getting those undone. And then really it's the last 3 bolts, but we do have to disconnect the parking brake. And so the parking brake is over on this side. There it is. And it is a weird little mechanism where nothing is actually held together with something that you would think would hold it together. It's just kind of floating in there, and they have little things to keep it from falling apart. But there is no like E-clip or any of that other stuff. So I know how we took apart the other side. One of the springs did break. We got new springs, but I'm going to try something different on this side and see if we can somehow get it out. Essentially this little spring here, I don't know how well you can see it, but this spring here is what we had issues with last time because of how it hooks on there. And I'm pretty sure you have to like hook these 2 together and then slide it on, because I tried on the other side and you can't get that to hook in and it to hook in on the other side. But what I'm going to try to do is essentially separate these 2 and pry this piece out, because you can see it wiggles in here, and when you pull the e-brake, it goes back and it pushes the pads out. But if we can, yeah, look, do you see that? That was so easy. It's like I knew what I was doing. First try. All right, so now this comes out, and then there's this pin here, and it just slots into those spots and holds onto that. That's where it pivots, right? And then where's my little screwdriver? This little pin, somehow I got to get out. I might need a smaller screwdriver. But this pin is what keeps the e-brake attached to all of this. I'm gonna grab a screwdriver. This is stupid. I got the screwdriver that's gonna actually do it, not that big monstrosity. So it just pushes that pin out, little pin, that comes off. We're gonna set these over there so I don't lose them. And then parking brake out. And that, other than bolts, was the last thing holding this entire thing in. I know what you're thinking. It sounds really simple. I can do that in my driveway. Let's get to the bushings first, and then you can decide if you want to do that in your driveway. So if you don't have a fancy jack to remove this, then that sucks. Now I'm going to take off the strut because we're getting rid of that. And then I'm going to show you how to take out the bushings. we're going to clean this, but you don't need to see that. It's just going to take me some time. But essentially, getting the bushings out from here is where either you'll spend a lot of time or you'll do what I say and not spend much time at all. So now I'm going to walk you through how to get these out the easiest way. That way you can put in your new solid bushings. The bottoms literally just twist off. They're, you know, whatever, they're super easy. These are technically pressed in, and they have the rubber bushing, and they have like a metal sleeve and stuff like that. This one definitely has a metal sleeve on it. The easiest way to get these out is actually a torch. And sure, you know, whatever the aluminum and all this stuff, we're not heating this. So there's a special way to do this, and it goes really quick. And then all you're gonna need is a screwdriver and a hammer. What we're going to do is stick the torch tip, lit obviously, into the center hole from the bottom. And it's not gonna go in very far, it's just gonna go in kind of slightly crooked. That way the flame is coming out of the center. And what that does is it heats up the center, separates the center metal from the rubber, and we wait, I don't know, it's like a minute or two, it's not long. And you'll see the rubber start to bubble, and then all you do is tap out the metal. And then with these two, it's really just the rubber in there. This one does have a metal sleeve, and I'm going to use an air hammer and a flathead and a screwdriver to get that out, or a hammer and a screwdriver. This one is, you definitely have to be careful of it because you don't want to nick anything in there, because it is, you know, what holds your suspension on the car. But it's just one of those things of, if you're patient and, you know, when you do pull the trigger on an air hammer, you know what's going to happen and it's pointing in the right direction, you'll be fine. You can see the bottom starting to smoke. There it is. And now we'll just wait for the top to do it. There's the top. Give it a little bit more, you know, a couple more seconds and so on. That way we know it's nice and loose. This is a horrible smell, so definitely do it in a well-ventilated area. That's that. Now, in order to get the rubber out, just shove it down, pivot, and there is, I believe, one on top and one on bottom. So, and it's out. So obviously there's some cleaning to do, but that probably took me 2.5 minutes. I don't know. Seemed kind of long. Definitely better than trying to find something to press that, or taking it somewhere and waiting for someone to press it and hoping that they do it right. All right. So this one doesn't pop out with the screwdriver being shoved in there. So I'm gonna go grab the air hammer. Essentially, if you're going to use an air hammer, what I tell anybody here that rents it or uses it, anything that's here, don't care about. So you don't want to point this towards anything you actually do care about, which, like this one, has a metal lip right here. So essentially, we don't want to dig into there because we care about the knuckle. So we want to start the lip up, and you see it starts to go up, and little nicks like that, that's not going to cause any issues. We just don't want to, because this will easily shove through any aluminum we point it at. And all we're doing is working this around so that we can fold it in the center, and then you can tap it out. Monty Python. Now it's time to put in our bushings. The flat one goes up top because it goes against the car. And the coned one is essentially just so that it's coned so that it mates with the nut really well. On this one, on both of them, it literally just kind of plopped in nicely. These ones, it needs a little extra loving. I'm not sure if the plopping is because of us getting out this bushing or what, but once it's in there, it doesn't wiggle around at all. So essentially, getting this lined up, and then you can use a press, you can use whatever. I'm using giant channel locks. And essentially all we got to do is squeeze it up in there, but it doesn't go all the way because granted, you know, a press will be a lot stronger than me. But another thing you can do, which is what I did on this side, is I put it on the car like this, where it was slightly apart, and then I put a spacer in between it and ran the nut up, and that pressed it in to where it needed to be, and then you take off the spacer and put it back together the way it is. But, so essentially all I'm doing is prepping it here so that it's good. If you want to use a ball joint press or something like that, you can. Either way is fine. I just know that it's easier for me to correct stuff with this attached to the car, so I do it this way. Couldn't find a spacer that will work, so I'm putting some grease on the end of the nut. That way it'll spin, because we don't want it to grind into the bushing that we're installing. All right, let me move to the other ones, and then we'll do a final torquing on the nuts for these. Now, since I got it off, we're gonna put the e-brake cable in, and hopefully, since I showed an easy way to take it out, I can show an easy way to put it back in. We'll see. I ain't done this before. All right. So we got that there. Now we just get this piece. So this is the orientation it goes in, because it's got to go up, and then we put the other side on it, and this one will actually hook up into there. Yeah, come on. Okay. So as I was saying earlier, it just sits in there like that. There's nothing that holds it or keeps it from falling out, other than me not being stupid. So now this goes in with that facing back. Just because of the pull, this is to block that pin from coming out. So now we got to put that through there. Slide this here up. Okay. So now we got it where it should be. Shove that under there. And you see the distance that we got to make up for? So it's much easier. Oh, we lost the light. It's okay. It's much easier for me to spread this apart than take this spring off. So we're going to grab my flathead and see if I can do this again. I'm going to try pushing up Ugh. And there you are. E-brake is together. I look like I know what I'm doing. I hope this helped out. All right, so the rest of it though, I'm gonna put this all back together. The caliper bolts torque to, it's 85 Newton meters, it's like 60, 61 foot-pounds. The bolts back here, the ones for the cross-member subframe kind of thing, this goes to 81 foot-pounds, or I think it's 110 Newton meters. The axle gets bolted on, that's somewhere, I can't remember exactly right now, but it's somewhere in like the 40 or 50 range of foot-pounds, because of course, I don't speak in Newton meters. And then little stuff like these little 10s and whatnot that go on here, they're actually 7.5. And then every brake line I've ever come across, which granted, you have to put on a crow's foot and everything to get those to torque, they should be 10 or 11 foot-pounds, no more. Any more, and now you're making it either harder on yourself or the poor bastard that has to do it after you. So I'm gonna piece this together. We're still going to have another video on getting this car together and going to the track and all that stuff, so you'll see that in there if you're interested. But this is just essentially to get those metal bushings in and have a better race suspension.